Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thank you for joining me today. In this video, we're going to recap what we've seen this week with these winter storms across the United States and how it's really an excellent case study in preparedness in general. So all across Texas right now, and basically parts of the country that are not used to seeing this level of A, cold, B, winter precipitation, people are flooded with snow, with ice, and in many cases they haven't had power for days and days now. So we're talking about Texas, we're talking about parts of Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, I think, has part of it. So all over the country right now, people are experiencing things. And this is very newsworthy because especially the mainstream media loves to exploit human suffering and then call themselves the purveyors of charity. But what I think is reasonable for us to look at right now is to evaluate how people are dealing with this. And ABC News actually last night showed the situation on the ground in Houston. And they're interviewing people, of course, who were lining up for groceries for hours in terribly cold temperatures, but also people who were not able to get water because of various instances. And I'm not here to critique anybody or call people, like kick people when they're down. That's not what I'm about, but I do want to evaluate what's going on here, because what I've heard, and particularly what ABC showed last night, where there were people who basically were saying, we're being told to boil our water. How can we boil water? We don't even have electricity. And on one hand, of course, your heart goes out to people because they just aren't prepared. And this is adding insult to injury on top of what everybody has been dealing with this past year, with finances being very heavily strapped and resources being limited and supply chain disruption manifesting itself prior to this winter storm. But what it showed me, and the first thing I thought of when I heard this woman say, and it was not in a pleading manner, it was in an entitled manner, like, how are we going to boil water? We don't even have electricity. And my thought was, do you not in your mind have a method to boil water somewhere in that Rolodex of possibilities that doesn't require electricity? And the shorter answer is no. And that really tells you where we are at as a nation, where we have such dependence and such a lack of adaptability that people don't understand there are ways to boil water without electricity. And so, firewood, of course, that's one thing. But even when I was growing up, my mother, bless her heart, had a Coleman camping stove and propane. And I remember we had the blizzard of 92, right, in East Tennessee. Or was it 93? I forget, whatever, I was young. And I remember when the power was out for a long time. And I remember when it was time for breakfast in the morning, my mother was cooking on the Coleman propane stove. And we had enough propane to last for a long time, definitely that week for sure. But that taught me something when I was young, and I saw my mother and my family adapt to situations. And my family were not preppers per se growing up. They weren't homesteaders. They were intelligent and forward, and are, praise God, intelligent and forward-looking people. And there's a can-do spirit that really separates, at this point, the wheat from the chaff. And so I think what we're going to see over the next week, for sure, is neighbors pitching in together and helping each other, particularly in places where that's the cultural norm. But it really did kind of hit me watching this and watching that interview from ABC. A black swan scenario, meaning a scenario that was low in probability but high in catastrophic impact, that had not reached these people's minds. Like, that had not even been there. The fact that there would be such a lack of critical thinking to say, how can we boil water? We don't have electricity. That was staggering to me. And it truly shows you just how few coping mechanisms people have, and how few, on average, people have anything stored up. And it could be obviously that they haven't had money, that their supplies are depleted. I've known people personally who during times of financial hardship depleted the vast majority of their stored food, and they had like 6 months of stored food. So that's obviously one possibility. But seeing the pictures of people waiting for hours and hours to buy groceries, I'm just sitting here shaking my head, feeling sorry for people. But at the same time, it's like, This is a practical point of preparedness, that we need the ability to eat that doesn't require electricity. We need the ability to cook without the grid, without electricity. And that could be various different things. It could be on a wood stove. It could be with propane on a camp stove out on your back porch or something like that. My friends in Mississippi right now, shout out to Jen. My friends in Mississippi are, having a camp out or grill out on the back porch, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. So adaptability is a big part of it, but really it is staggering to me that people just do not learn. But when I evaluate what we have inherited over the past several decades, as a nation, we have inherited an entire class, pardon the term, class aggregate group of people who from cradle to grave have had checks coming in for them, to them, every month from the taxpayers. Every part of their life has been subsidized by the taxpayers. From the time they were born, they had some government program paying for them to eat, to have after school care, to have preventative programs so that they didn't create more in the system and that just ended up continuing. We have an entire group, swath of people in this nation who are so used to being handed everything that they don't even understand that you have other ways to boil water that does not require an electric range. Sad. But on the flip side of it, I'm hearing great stories of people who are saying, you know what, my family members came over and we all huddled together because they didn't have power and they've been staying with us and we've got enough food and everything's prepped. We're doing just fine. The benefit of living a prepared lifestyle and having your beans, bullets, and Band-Aids stored up is that, God forbid, whenever circumstances come your way, black swan or otherwise, you are prepared and you don't have to be these people going out and standing, freezing with blankets over their heads in single-digit degree temperatures, waiting to buy groceries and hoping you're going to have water or food or something to cook with because you've already got it stored up. And there's wisdom in this. So friends, it is going to be an interesting next few days for sure, probably the next week, because I think we got another storm system that's coming in. And I think it's an opportunity for us to look and to learn, to look at how this system is playing out. And God bless the people of Texas right now. Your sister state, Tennessee, sends love. Because I think a lot of people were truly not prepared for this. Did not expect, there not to be any electricity, but definitely with the water. And we're seeing that water is a critical thing. Water is a critical factor and a critical thing to have stored up. And people, people don't necessarily think about that. But there are ways to get water. If you've got a big Berkey and you've got snow, you can melt snow and pour that snow through the Berkey and you've got drinking water. That's what those things are designed for. I'll put a link in the description box below if you don't have a Berkey system. That's what I use. I can recommend it because I've used it for almost 10 years now, and they work, buddy. They work. Having a reliable way to purify your water is essential, and I've spoken about this multiple times over the years. But it is critical. Food is critical. Water is critical. Some type of fuel, of heating capability, that is important too. It's nice to be able to have food that's hot, but really when it comes right down to it, you don't have to have hot food to live. You don't technically have to have food to live for long. You can go for days and days without calories, provided that you've got water. The water is the critical element right now. So friends, we're going to see over the next few days how things are going. God bless the people of Texas and the people who have been affected by this storm that's coming through. May your relief come soon. And it's a good opportunity for us, particularly as believers, to check on people and to huddle together physically and spiritually in times like this, so that way we can care for each other. And in particular, folks, we got to be caring for the elders in this. Got to be looking out for our older folks who maybe don't have power. We had a hypothermic death, not far from here in Kentucky, this yesterday, actually, as a matter of fact. Check on your elders, make sure that they're squared away. Visit people who are potentially at risk for not having enough food and definitely not having heat, especially if they are a frail composition. So be caring for people and be checking on people. I hope it was helpful for y'all. Stay safe out there, guys. Much love to you. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later.